Hi, I'm Gareth Green, and in this video we're going to be thinking about a few clever little tricks around the dominant chord. So we're going to be thinking about how to augment the dominant chord. Don't worry if that's freaking you out already, we'll soon come back and unpack it. This might be useful as something in the middle of a phrase where you just want to add a bit of colour, a bit of spice to what you're writing. Or it may be that you've written so many 5-1 progressions at a cadence that you're thinking, surely there's something else I can do with this. So let's have a think about what I'm talking about in terms of augmenting the dominant chord. If we are in the key of C major, the dominant chord is obviously chord 5, so the 5th degree of the scale is G, and the chord is therefore G, B, D. So normally the dominant chord is a major chord. It's a major chord in a major key. It's usually a major chord in a minor key. If you're using the harmonic minor scale, it will be major. If you're using the ascending melodic minor scale, it will be major. If you're using a natural minor, well, that's a bit different. It then becomes a minor chord. But for most people, you're going to find your dominant chord is a major chord. So how do I augment a major chord? Let's get that one clear for a start. When you have a major chord, you have a root note, in this case G. The B is a major third above the root, and the D is a perfect fifth above the root. So we hold on to G, the root, we hold on to the major third, but instead of having a perfect fifth above the root, we augment the fifth to become D sharp. So G, B, D, there's your dominant chord. G, B, D sharp is your augmented chord. And you can immediately feel that has a certain kind of slightly chilling presence, doesn't it? That augmented chord. So if I'm in the key of C major, why would I want to use a D sharp? Well, you would be doing this as a chromatic alteration to the dominant chord. So if we have a look at the first example I put on here, you'll hear how it works, and then we'll unpack what it looks like. So what I've written here is this. Okay, sounds quite good actually, doesn't it? Because what I could normally do if I just missed out this middle chord, it would just be going 5, 1. And lots of people have spent years writing 5-1 thinking, surely there's something I can do between the 5 and the 1. Well, there is. You can go 5, you can augment the 5, and then you can go to 1. Now, there is a little voice leading issue here. You'll notice that I've started on D at the top in my chord 5. I've turned the D into D sharp in order to augment the 5, and the D sharp is pulling me up to E. You can really hear that it wants to do that. There's the D. As soon as I write the D sharp wants to climb up to E. So whenever you augment the dominant chord, that augmented note is going to want to pull up. That's the critical thing. Now, do you have to do that? Well, let's play the first example, but this time I'll allow the top part to fall to C. So I'm going D, D sharp, and then falling to C. And you can hear now it sounds a bit odd. That D sharp is not pulling in the right direction. So wherever you've got the augmented note, the D sharp in this case, let it pull up. So there's the first example. When you look at my second example, I'm doing just the same thing, but this time the D, D sharp, E is actually in the alto part. So that feels a bit different, doesn't it? Because now, instead of that augmented dominant chord kind of appearing at the top of the texture, I've got it hidden in the middle, so it becomes a little bit more subtle. And actually the top line is just repeating G, 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 but you're hearing that slightly more subtle coloration at the bottom of the upper parts. So you can see how that might work. Now, what about if we wanted to do the same progression, but instead of using a 5, we're going to use a 5-7. Well, I'm starting here with an ordinary chord 5, ordinary dominant chord. Then I'm augmenting that in just the same way, but this time I'm adding a 7th to it. Now, if you want to do that the D sharp needs to rise, so that augmented fifth needs to rise. The seventh normally wants to fall, okay? So that's what's going on here. Have a listen to this version. So you can hear that's kind of even richer, isn't it? Going 5. Well, sometimes you might just go 5, 5, 7, 1. Lots of people will have done that. But here's an even richer possibility. 5, augment the 5, but put the 7th in as well. And then go on to the 1. So that's what's happening there. Now, because we're dealing with the resolution of a 5/7, even though it's augmented, normally the 7th would fall by a step, which is, pretty good idea. And then this would rise by a step. The third would rise by a step. But, you could allow that third to fall to a G. You could have that F breaking into 2 parts to fill out the chord. I'm just showing you those possibilities. If you're writing 4 parts for voices or string quartet or something, you don't really want to end up with a 5-part chord. But if you're writing for keyboard, you could do that. So there we are. There's an even richer possibility of making your augmented dominant into a 7th. You could do this in 3 parts, which is what I'm trying to illustrate here. So just in case you're thinking, well, I'd like to do that, but I've only got 3 parts that I'm writing for. Well, you can still do it, because here's an example where I've got the dominant chord in first inversion. And then I'm augmented, and then on to chord 1. So it's perfectly possible to do it in 3 parts, and it's showing you that it's perfectly possible to do this in first inversion as well. Well, what about if I keep that idea using the 7th chord, but I try to use the 7th chord in its last inversion? So here's another possibility. Have a listen to this. So you can do that. Now, the only thing there, as always, that D sharp, that augmented fifth, wants to rise. If you've got a 7th, it wants to fall. But because the 7th is in the bass, it's going to have to fall to a chord 1 in first inversion. And then, that needs to rise really, doesn't it? That needs to fall. So the third rises, the 7th falls, the augmented fifth needs to rise. The only issue it throws up is it leaves you with a double major third in those 2 parts. Well, is that something you could live with? Because it comes as a result of the voice leading. In other words, you haven't really got any choice but to double the major third. So in that case, it's perfectly feasible that you can do that. Well, these are not exhaustive possibilities, but I'm just introducing you to this idea, because if you're brave enough to do that, you'll find you can add some color to what you're writing. So you might have 5/1 progressions that are going on mid-phrase. You could use it there. You might have cadences, perfect cadences, authentic cadences that you want to do something with. You could do it with the top part. You could do it with the middle part. You could use the 7th idea. You could try it in different inversions. There are many possibilities for doing this. So this is a kind of invitation to explore augmenting the dominant chord. And just remember that D sharp, that augmented fifth, needs to rise by step, and then the voice leading should work out. If you're using a 7th, remember the 7th falls by step, the 3rd rises by step, so you've got to embrace those voice leading issues as well. But it's just something that will add another dimension to your harmony, or give you a little bit of more emotional content in a song you might be writing, or something of that order. So I hope that's something useful. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, you might think about becoming a Music Matters maestro. There are all sorts of opportunities for maestros, because we've got 3 levels. They're not levels of ability, they're levels of engagement. Level 1 just costs a very small amount each month, and you get loyalty badges, you get emojis, you get early access to new videos. So actually that's a pretty cool thing, and it's a great support level that helps to keep us going. If you want to go a bit further, you could go on and become a level 2 maestro, which means you're automatically a level 1 maestro. There you get access to live streams every month, members only material, behind the scenes stuff, all in addition. And if you really want to go for it, you could become a level 3 maestro. All the benefits of level 1 and level 2 are yours, but then with a level 3, you get a second live stream each month. You get to have a say in choosing topics of videos. You get feedback on your work, individual feedback on your work, which is fantastic. You can have a personal thank you message, an individual video from me if you want to join up on level 3. And you get a 10% discount off all of our online courses. So there we are, that's Maestro's. So if you want to think about, oh, this could be something for me, www.mmcourses.co.uk, click on Maestro's, you'll find out all there is to know, and you can join if you want to. It'd be lovely to have you with us.